In the galaxy, countless species coexist, each with its own place within the complex web of alliances, trade, and power. This galactic community is built on a mix of diplomatic negotiations and strategic alliances, with each faction bringing unique strengths to the table. Some possess advanced technology, others have physical prowess or powerful fleets, and a few have established empires that dominate entire sectors. Despite vast differences, a general balance of power exists, with unwritten rules keeping conflicts in check. Humanity, however, is a relatively new arrival in this arena. Earth's first contact with alien species came as a surprise, revealing a vast and intricate galactic order far beyond anything humans had imagined. Yet humanity entered the galactic scene with the same optimism and curiosity that had propelled them through centuries of exploration. They believed that mutual cooperation and shared interests would be enough to build bridges with these older, more advanced civilizations. Other species, however, did not share this optimistic view. Compared to the long-standing powers, humanity was considered unimpressive. They lacked the biological advantages of certain species, such as incredible strength or heightened senses. In the galaxy's eyes, humans were physically limited, bound by shorter lifespans, and reliant on technology that seemed barely sufficient to even reach this interstellar stage. The galaxy saw humans as small, resource-limited, and underdeveloped, a people driven by ambition rather than capability. Their technological achievements, which had once seemed impressive on Earth, were seen as rudimentary at best when placed alongside the advanced machinery of older civilizations. This perception created a widespread attitude of condescension toward humanity. Other species viewed them as harmless, naive, and at times amusing. The idea that humans could pose a threat was inconceivable. Humanity was merely tolerated, and their attempts to establish themselves in the galactic order were often dismissed. They were given the least desirable sectors for trade, restricted access to shared resources, and kept at a distance in diplomatic circles. Humans were seen as children among titans, encouraged to keep to themselves and avoid meddling in galactic matters beyond their reach. This general disregard soon morphed into outright mockery and exploitation. Other factions began testing humanity's boundaries, taking advantage of their eagerness to cooperate. Trade negotiations were manipulated to the detriment of humans, their resources were undervalued, and Earth's diplomatic efforts were often met with hollow promises or veiled threats. Any attempt by humanity to assert itself was met with dismissive smiles or even open laughter. The galactic powers saw humans as an oddity, a species too fragile and underpowered to command respect or even concern. But humans, though often underestimated, are more resilient than they appear. On Earth, humanity had survived wars, environmental challenges, and social upheavals for centuries. Their history was filled with tales of perseverance and adaptability, of making the most of limited resources and prevailing against daunting odds. While they lacked the raw physical advantages or advanced technologies of other species, humans had cultivated a spirit of resilience and a resourcefulness that set them apart. Yet this resilience went largely unnoticed. Most species had little understanding of human history, of the ingenuity honed through centuries of survival in diverse environments. They saw humanity only through the lens of their limitations, blind to the strength that lay beneath. To them, humans were simple, almost quaint, a species that, though willing to cooperate, would not withstand a serious challenge from any of the established powers. They felt secure in their assumption that humans would remain in their place, offering no resistance to the galactic hierarchy. The final blow to humanity's patience came in the form of a seemingly minor incident. Another faction, fully confident in humanity's passivity, chose to test their limits. Whether it was seizing human-controlled space stations, interfering with Earth's fledgling trade routes, or ridiculing human diplomats, the offense was blatant. This faction believed that humans would tolerate this as they had tolerated every slight before. They saw no risk, only the opportunity to further assert their dominance. To them, it was an unspoken message: stay out of galactic affairs or face the consequences. But this time, humanity's response was different. The offense was taken personally, and for the first time, Earth's leaders resolved to push back. While other species might dismiss such actions as a nuisance, humanity was unwilling to allow open disrespect to go unanswered. This marked a turning point, a line that humanity had decided would not be crossed without consequences. Unbeknownst to the rest of the galaxy, humans were preparing a response, one that would demonstrate a side of their nature the galaxy had never considered. This decision wasn't about military might or technological superiority. Humans knew they couldn't match the raw power of other factions. Instead, they would rely on what they knew best: resilience, ingenuity, and an unyielding resolve. They had centuries of experience in dealing with situations where the odds were stacked against them. On Earth, they had turned challenges into opportunities, using limited resources to achieve the impossible. Now, they would bring that same approach to the galactic stage. In choosing to retaliate, humanity wasn't aiming to dominate or conquer. They simply wanted respect, a recognition that they were not to be mocked or belittled. To the humans, this was a matter of principle, a stand against the dismissal and disrespect they had faced since first contact. While the rest of the galaxy continued to view humans as harmless and inconsequential, humanity's resolve had crystallized into a single, unified goal: to show the galaxy that provoking Earth was a grave miscalculation. Humans have long been defined by their adaptability. On Earth, they evolved in diverse environments, from scorching deserts to frozen tundras, cultivating a unique resilience over millennia. Adapting to change and surviving on limited resources became second nature. While other species may have evolved in specialized habitats, humans developed the ability to thrive almost anywhere, learning to create tools, shelter, and communities under some of the harshest conditions imaginable. This background gave them an innate flexibility, a trait that other species, used to stable environments or technological shortcuts, couldn't fully comprehend. In addition to physical adaptability, humanity's resilience has been forged through centuries of facing adversity. Human history is filled with crises, wars, famines, natural disasters, that pushed their boundaries and forced them to innovate. Where other species might fold under prolonged hardship, humans became stronger, driven by necessity to make rapid adjustments and develop new approaches to survive. This history of constant challenge created a society that didn't just survive pressure but thrived under it. Unknown to the galactic powers, humans were used to difficult odds and unexpected threats. Survival under pressure was simply part of who they were. Beyond physical survival, humans learned to find solutions in unexpected places. Unlike many other species that relied heavily on biological enhancements or advanced technology, humans relied on their ability to think creatively and adapt to limited resources. They developed methods and strategies that prioritized versatility over raw power. This ingenuity allowed them to overcome challenges with unconventional approaches, finding opportunity in the mundane. From creating complex systems with minimal tools to using misdirection in combat, humans excelled at making the most out of limited options. This ability to think outside traditional confines was alien to the galactic community, which tended to rely on straightforward tactics and brute force. The human mind's flexibility extended beyond physical or tactical adaptability. It included an understanding of psychology and the ability to anticipate and influence behavior. Centuries of social evolution had trained humans to navigate complex relationships, read intentions, and use strategy to achieve goals that physical strength alone couldn't secure. Humans learned to observe and exploit weaknesses, not just on the battlefield but in negotiations and alliances. Where other species saw humans as lacking in obvious power, they underestimated the depth of human cunning and resilience. Galactic species accustomed to rigid structures were unprepared for this layered approach, one where every action held a potential for leverage. The galactic community, in its arrogance, dismissed these strengths as insignificant. Used to brute power and bioengineered advantages, the galaxy's older civilizations couldn't imagine a threat from a species that seemed so reliant on basic tools and short lifespans. They assumed humanity's ingenuity was a weakness, a sign of their struggle to keep up with the galaxy's real powers. They underestimated how deeply ingrained human resilience was, seeing only the surface and ignoring the skills honed through millennia of survival on Earth. Their focus on raw power and predictable hierarchies blinded them to humanity's ability to adapt, improvise, and endure. When humanity began responding to the galactic offenses, they didn't rely on showy displays of power but on calculated actions that targeted weaknesses others overlooked. Humans weren't seeking to overpower, they sought to undermine, disrupt, and challenge assumptions. These responses came in many forms, from small economic disruptions to well-timed cyber attacks that exposed vulnerabilities in their adversaries' systems. Humans approached this not as a battle of strength but as a test of strategic endurance. Their adversaries began to see that they couldn't predict human tactics, as humanity didn't play by the usual rules of engagement. The first hints of human retaliation puzzled the galaxy. Small incidents, seemingly unconnected, began to inconvenience those who had dismissed humanity. Communication lines suffered interruptions, key supplies disappeared, and logistical issues piled up. At first, these incidents seemed like accidents or coincidences, but as they increased in frequency and precision, the galactic powers started to take notice. It became clear that humanity was capable of disrupting their complex systems with targeted efficiency. Other species, accustomed to direct confrontations, found themselves confused and off balance, unable to grasp the depth of humanity's methods. Humans approached conflict in layers, focusing on strategies that combined resilience with relentless focus. Rather than meeting aggression with aggression, they used indirect methods that their adversaries struggled to counter. This multifaceted approach left humanity's opponents unprepared and vulnerable, realizing too late that they had misjudged the human capacity for strategic thinking. What had begun as minor disruptions evolved into significant blows to their control, forcing them to take humanity seriously for the first time. Humanity's layered approach, striking at infrastructure, morale, and resources, revealed a tactical depth the galaxy hadn't anticipated. Even as their retaliation unfolded, humans remained calm, methodical, and unyielding. Their actions were deliberate, designed to teach the galaxy a lesson about the consequences of provocation. Where other species relied on advanced technology to solve problems, humans relied on insight, finding creative ways to counter systems built on predictability. The galaxy began to see that humanity's strength lay not in their technology but in their adaptability and resilience. While humanity didn't possess the same level of power as their adversaries, they knew how to apply pressure where it mattered, exposing cracks in even the most advanced systems. As humanity's response continued, the initial underestimation turned to a grudging respect, and then to genuine concern. Galactic species accustomed to rigid strategies and predictable outcomes were now confronted with a force that defied all their assumptions. Humans didn't just adapt to each new challenge, they seemed to thrive in the unpredictable environment they had created. The galaxy saw that humans were not only relentless but deeply strategic, using every tool at their disposal to overcome the odds. Their ingenuity, often dismissed as rudimentary, proved to be a powerful advantage in ways that technology alone could not replicate. The message was becoming clear: humanity was not a species to be trifled with. Their capacity to endure, adapt, and retaliate revealed strengths that went far beyond surface appearances. Galactic powers, who had once viewed humanity with condescension, were beginning to realize that they had underestimated the human spirit. Humanity's response was not just about winning, it was about demonstrating that they could not be dismissed or disrespected. This unfolding resilience and determination became a warning to any species considering a similar mistake. Humanity's response to the provocation was nothing like the galaxy had expected. Rather than countering with brute force or seeking open confrontation, humans took a strategic approach that was subtle, calculated, and, to their adversaries, highly disorienting. Rather than announcing their retaliation, they quietly began to target key systems that supported their opponents' power and influence. They didn't need to match the galaxy's technology or manpower, they needed only to apply pressure where it hurt the most. And they did so with surgical precision. The first wave of retaliation involved disruptions in communication. Galactic factions, particularly those aligned with the offending species, began experiencing inexplicable issues with their long-range communication networks. Signals were scrambled, vital data corrupted, and secure channels compromised. These disruptions seemed minor at first, an annoyance, nothing more. But as they continued and spread, it became clear that someone was methodically targeting the infrastructure holding their communication networks together. For species who relied heavily on these networks for military coordination, trade, and diplomacy, the effect was paralyzing. With communication channels in disarray, humanity expanded its strategy to economic disruption. Trade routes that were essential to the flow of resources and goods began facing sudden delays and blockages. Cargo ships encountered mysterious navigation errors, supply lines faced unexpected shortages, and resource deliveries stalled indefinitely. Humanity didn't need to control these resources, they only needed to create enough confusion to weaken the enemy's economic stability. While many assumed these disruptions were temporary, the ripple effects were severe, forcing galactic leaders to shift resources to maintain stability within their own territories. The message was clear: humanity could reach them where they least expected. This economic disruption sowed unease and forced the offending factions into a defensive position. Galactic leaders, still reluctant to take humanity seriously, attempted to attribute these disruptions to coincidences or technical malfunctions. But with each passing day, the precision and frequency of these setbacks indicated a coordinated effort. Humanity wasn't seeking direct confrontation, they were undermining the galaxy's very foundation, destabilizing the intricate systems on which it relied. The tactics were subtle yet devastating, showcasing humanity's ability to wage a form of psychological and economic warfare that required no massive fleet or advanced weaponry. Meanwhile, humanity's reputation was spreading. Whispers circulated among neutral factions, who began reconsidering their alliances and interactions with Earth. Some saw an opportunity to align with humans, recognizing the value of a species that could retaliate effectively without traditional force. Others began distancing themselves from the factions involved in provoking Earth, not wanting to become targets of humanity's wrath. These shifting alliances destabilized the previously well-ordered galaxy, as factions scrambled to re-evaluate their stance on humanity. Humanity's unconventional tactics proved to be difficult to counter. Galactic species accustomed to direct, technology-based combat couldn't adapt to this style of retaliation. While they sought to re-establish control, humans used flexibility to stay steps ahead, moving with a level of unpredictability that kept their adversaries guessing. Traditional countermeasures proved useless against an enemy that adapted in real time, shifting their tactics to outmaneuver every attempt at containment. The galaxy was forced to recognize that humanity, though lacking in sheer firepower, wielded influence and adaptability in ways that no one had anticipated. As the retaliation continued, the galaxy's initial perception of humanity as harmless began to shift into one of respect and even caution. Every measure the factions took to regain control was met with new challenges. Humanity's ability to anticipate and counter every move demonstrated a level of strategic depth that few species had. This wasn't a show of strength through violence but through calculated, intelligent strikes that left their adversaries in constant disarray. Humanity wasn't reacting, they were executing a meticulously planned campaign of disruption. Now facing a destabilized economy and fractured communication, the offending factions began to show signs of vulnerability. Their resources stretched thin, and their leadership was at a loss. Allies grew distant, viewing this as a lesson on the risks of underestimating Earth. What had started as a minor act of disrespect had evolved into a nightmare for those who had provoked humanity. Unable to contain or counter this level of precision, the factions found themselves in an unfamiliar position, on the defensive against a force they couldn't easily predict or control. Humanity's response made a lasting impression on the galactic community. It became clear that humans would not follow the conventional paths expected of them. They didn't need the most powerful ships, armies, or weapons, they relied on something much harder to counter: strategy and resilience. This adaptability turned humanity into an unpredictable adversary, one capable of fighting a different kind of war. The factions who once scoffed at humans now faced a hard truth: provoking humanity had consequences they were unprepared to handle. What began as targeted strikes evolved into a campaign that forced the galaxy to take notice. Factions beyond those directly involved in the offense began to question their stance on humanity, realizing that Earth's capacity for retaliation was more sophisticated than they'd imagined. They saw that humans could not be cowed by intimidation or superior firepower. They responded with cunning, resilience, and precision that destabilized entire systems without firing a shot. Humanity's actions redefined what it meant to engage with Earth and left the galaxy reassessing its own assumptions about power and influence. In the face of an opponent who refused to engage on familiar terms, the galaxy began to adapt, recognizing the depth of humanity's resolve. The once dismissive factions found themselves surrounded by shifting alliances, growing dissent, and a fractured support base. For the first time, humanity had not only defended itself but demonstrated a level of control over a situation that should have been impossible for a lesser species. The galaxy, accustomed to clear hierarchies and predictable tactics, now saw that they had underestimated a force that thrived in adaptability and precision. Humanity's response became a lesson in humility for the galaxy. The factions involved learned that provoking Earth wasn't just a diplomatic misstep, it was a strategic failure. Their inability to counter or contain humanity's unique approach exposed fundamental flaws in their assumptions about power. The galaxy's traditional powers now understood: humans, though lacking the resources of older civilizations, possessed strengths that made them formidable allies or dangerous adversaries. Earth had taught them that underestimating humanity was a mistake with far-reaching consequences. As humanity's retaliation grew in scope, the galaxy began to realize the full consequences of provoking Earth. What started as calculated disruptions had evolved into a strategic campaign affecting multiple systems and alliances. Neutral factions, once indifferent, now took notice. Many started reconsidering their stance on Earth, sensing that aligning with humanity might provide unexpected benefits. Meanwhile, factions that had originally mocked humanity found themselves increasingly isolated, facing losses that extended beyond the battlefield and into the economic and political arenas. The ripple effects of humanity's actions spread far beyond their initial targets. Factions that had initially dismissed Earth as inconsequential were now reevaluating their assumptions, realizing that humans brought an unexpected advantage to the table. With each move, humanity demonstrated an understanding of alliances and politics that caught even the oldest factions off guard. As a result, previously neutral groups began quietly reaching out, testing the waters for potential alliances with Earth. They saw an opportunity not only to avoid humanity's ire but to tap into the resourcefulness that had allowed humans to turn a minor provocation into a significant counterforce. The growing support for humanity created tension within the established power structures. The galaxy's older factions, seeing humanity's influence expand, grew concerned. They hadn't anticipated Earth's ability to disrupt the status quo, much less gain allies along the way. These factions had always believed that humanity, lacking advanced technology and resources, could never alter the galactic order. But now, humans were reshaping alliances, showing a capacity for diplomacy that rivaled their tactical acumen. Earth had become a force others wanted to support rather than challenge, shifting the balance of power in ways that few had foreseen. For some factions, the choice to align with humanity was rooted in pragmatism. They recognized that humans could achieve outcomes through unconventional means, offering support in areas that traditional alliances couldn't address. Humans brought fresh perspectives and strategies, providing value beyond brute strength or advanced technology. Earth's alliances with these factions strengthened humanity's position, further unsettling those who had initially dismissed or exploited them. What began as informal collaborations soon grew into significant partnerships, where the adaptability and ingenuity of humanity complemented the resources and stability of their new allies. The galaxy's response was swift but fractured. Established powers saw the potential threat of a strengthened Earth and sought ways to counterbalance humanity's growing influence. Some factions attempted to discredit humanity, framing them as a destabilizing force that threatened galactic order. Yet, these efforts largely backfired, as each failed attempt to undermine Earth only highlighted humanity's effectiveness in defending its interests. The galaxy saw that humans were no longer willing to be seen as inferior, passive players. Their presence was here to stay, and any further attempts to suppress them would only strengthen their resolve. The galactic community was now at a crossroads, facing a new reality where humanity was a legitimate force in diplomatic and strategic matters. Humanity's new allies found unexpected value in their partnership, benefiting from the humans' creativity and willingness to explore alternatives to traditional methods. This adaptability proved invaluable, especially for factions that had grown tired of the rigid power dynamics dominating galactic relations. Humanity's allies saw that the humans, once viewed as a minor player, offered a perspective that broke free from the usual galactic conventions, which resonated with factions seeking new paths forward. The factions that had initially provoked Earth found themselves increasingly isolated. Former allies distanced themselves, wary of being drawn into further conflict with humanity. Attempts to form a coalition against Earth failed to gain traction, as few were willing to risk opposing a species that had proven its resilience and capacity for strategic retribution. Humanity's reputation had shifted from that of a minor, inconsequential species to one that commanded respect. Even factions with no direct interest in Earth saw the wisdom in maintaining a cautious neutrality rather than risking confrontation. The galaxy now faced an undeniable truth: humanity's actions were reshaping the political landscape. Factions that had previously seen no value in Earth now found themselves acknowledging humanity's influence. Human ingenuity, adaptability, and persistence had elevated their status far beyond what anyone could have expected. Those who had dismissed Earth as unimportant were forced to consider that humanity might be more than a passing anomaly. They were a stabilizing force that could disrupt the old ways of power, creating new opportunities for collaboration among like-minded allies. Humanity's strategic approach didn't just build alliances, it introduced a new standard of resilience and adaptability into galactic diplomacy. Those who aligned with Earth saw the benefits of a partnership that valued innovation and resourcefulness, qualities that had often been neglected in favor of brute power. Humanity had turned adversity into strength, and in doing so, inspired others to challenge the status quo. The galaxy had no choice but to recognize Earth as a force that valued respect and cooperation, but one that would not hesitate to retaliate when threatened. The message was clear: humanity had transformed from an underestimated newcomer into a respected, even formidable, presence. Galactic factions began to realize that Earth's strategic capabilities, combined with its alliances, made it a potential cornerstone of stability. Humanity's growth from overlooked to respected had forced the galaxy to reconsider its preconceptions about what power truly meant. No longer were humans seen as outliers to be managed or disregarded; they had proven their worth through action, creating a legacy that other factions began to view with admiration and a healthy respect. In the end, humanity's actions had a lasting impact. They didn't just achieve retribution, they redefined their place in the galaxy. The factions who had attempted to undermine Earth now saw their own influence weakened, their positions diminished by the very arrogance that had led them to provoke humanity in the first place. For Earth, this was more than a victory, it was an affirmation of their resilience, a declaration that humans were not to be taken lightly. Earth's presence in the galactic community was now backed by a legacy of calculated strength, showing that while they sought peace, humans would never be passive. The galaxy's factions understood now that humanity would stand its ground, proving that respect was a necessity, not a choice. The galaxy had learned an enduring lesson about humanity. What started as a minor conflict had reshaped their perception of Earth and fundamentally shifted their understanding of power. Humanity's calculated, resilient response proved that while they valued cooperation, they would never tolerate disrespect or exploitation. Their actions weren't just retaliation, they were a reminder that strength could take many forms, and that Earth's position in the galaxy was built on more than raw power. It was built on resilience, adaptability, and the capacity to respond strategically to any challenge. The factions who had underestimated Earth now faced the repercussions of their actions. They had assumed that humanity's lack of advanced technology and influence meant they posed no threat, but the exact opposite was true. Their rigid structures and predictable tactics were ineffective against a species willing to exploit every weakness, adapt to every new obstacle, and redefine the rules. This encounter wasn't just a lesson in humility, it was a revelation of how limited their own strategies were when confronted with true adaptability. Humanity's response had exposed the galaxy's over-reliance on hierarchy and predictability. For humanity, this was a pivotal moment. They had entered the galactic stage with hopes for peaceful integration, only to be met with dismissal and mockery. But instead of bending, they demonstrated the strength that had helped them endure centuries of challenges on Earth. They showed the galaxy that their resilience was not simply a survival trait, it was a source of power. Humans had turned a moment of disrespect into a transformative event, securing their position in the galaxy not by force alone, but by the respect they commanded through unwavering resolve. The impact of humanity's actions extended far beyond their own immediate goals. By standing firm, they had disrupted the established order and prompted other factions to reconsider their own approach to diplomacy and power. Humanity's alliances introduced a new era of mutual respect among species previously marginalized by the galactic giants. Earth became a model for how smaller, seemingly less powerful factions could influence the galactic balance by focusing on resourcefulness, intelligence, and solidarity rather than brute strength. Humanity's success opened doors for other factions, inspiring a shift toward cooperation and adaptability across the galaxy. Even the most powerful factions, those who had long considered themselves unassailable, had to adjust to this new reality. They began adopting elements of humanity's strategic approach, realizing that rigid structures could no longer guarantee their dominance. Their past confidence, rooted in technological superiority, was now tempered by caution, understanding that even a seemingly insignificant player could shift the balance with enough resolve and ingenuity. Earth had proven that power lay not in the weapons one wielded but in the adaptability and tenacity of one's approach. Humanity's reputation grew beyond the specific factions they had initially engaged. Stories of their resilience, creativity, and willingness to defend their dignity spread across the galaxy. Neutral species began to see Earth as a symbol of strength that went beyond mere military might. Humanity's approach to conflict, one that prioritized long-term impact and meaningful alliances, became an inspiration. Species that had once viewed Earth with indifference now sought to understand the values that drove humans, curious about the depth of resolve they had witnessed. The factions who had provoked Earth were left with lasting consequences. They faced weakened alliances, diminished influence, and a tarnished reputation that could not be easily repaired. Their attempts to suppress humanity had instead elevated Earth, revealing their own vulnerabilities and diminishing their status in the galactic community. Humanity's actions had made it clear that they were not to be manipulated or dismissed, leaving a warning for those who might consider taking similar liberties in the future. Humanity's legacy in the galaxy was one of resilience and respect. They had shown that even a lesser species could rise to meet any challenge, proving that power was more than technology or resources, it was a matter of will. Earth's ascent marked a new era, one where the old definitions of strength no longer applied. Humanity had redefined what it meant to be powerful, inspiring other species to value independence and adaptability as much as firepower. The galaxy now understood that humanity's strength came from its unity, creativity, and refusal to back down in the face of adversity. In the end, the galaxy came to see humanity not as a potential ally or adversary, but as a force that stood on its own terms. They learned that Earth would act decisively when provoked and that its people valued dignity as much as peace. Humanity's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder to respect those who appeared weaker, for true power often lay in the qualities unseen. For Earth, this victory wasn't just a retaliation, it was a declaration that they were a force to be reckoned with, capable of shaping the galaxy's future as much as any of the established powers. As the galaxy moved forward, the impact of humanity's response lingered, influencing alliances, shaping diplomacy, and inspiring a shift toward a broader understanding of strength. Earth had emerged not only as a respected power but as a symbol of adaptability and resilience. The factions that had sought to dominate or dismiss them were left with no choice but to recognize that humanity's will to survive and succeed would continue to define their place in the galaxy. The lesson was clear to all: never underestimate humanity's resolve, and above all, never provoke a species that fights with both mind and spirit.